Focus isn't just about staring harder. If it was, then I think most of us would be a lot further ahead in life. Focus is much more about honoring what matters with your time, your energy, and your attention. As a side note, it's also how things actually eventually get done. For many people, I think focus is kind of a four-letter word, right? That's the new F word. It gets used to attack. You better focus. You better understand. You better get there faster. You better do those things. And while the idea behind it can be good, the use of it can be a little bit damaging. And today we're going to show how that does not have to be the case and how we can move forward in a positive way. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Calm and Clarity Conversations. I'm Dan McPherson. I'm a coach, a speaker, and a passionate believer that people matter most and relationships are everything. One of the core equations that supports every one of us is that calm and clarity and focus in that order are the only path to true momentum, whether it's life, business, anything else. And in episodes 3 and 6, we explored calm and clarity. We looked at what does it take to get grounded and to be clear so that we can begin to take steps forward. After a very strong reception to those conversations, today we're going to take the next step and talk about focus, the bridge between vision and real progress. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through the 6 foundations of focus. Each one of them includes a core principle, a real story, and also a practical action that you can take right away. Now, if you know me, you'll know that this isn't fluff and that I will be sharing real world tools that will help you show up with intention and the ability to follow through so that you can take that next meaningful step toward your dreams. With that, let's get started. When we think about the 6 foundations of focus, the first one is going to rankle some people. It might even hit you wrong, and that's okay. I'm not asking you guys to grab all 6 of these and do them right away. In fact, as you'll hear in step 2, I'm going to encourage you to do one of them, to pick one and do that and incorporate it, and then go forward and be able to work on the others. Number one is guard your sleep. The principle here is that sleep has far more impact than you realize. And this is very much true for me. It's something that I've discovered pretty late in life and I wish I had discovered earlier, but it has an incredible impact. And I don't just mean the things that we hear doctors talk about, which are important, right? They're good for your heart health, it's good for your brain health, it's good for all of those things. That matters. But from a practical standpoint of how much you can get done, even if you have fooled yourself into thinking otherwise, I promise you, sleep makes an impact. I, about 9 years ago now, did a sleep study on myself. I had just worked through corporate for many, many years. I had left that to be able to start my own business. And when I did, I started Leaders Must Lead. I was like, you know what? I want to reset. I want to reset my life, my business, my body, all of it. I let my body sleep for as much as it wanted to. And it took a month or so to heal. But after that time of healing, what I found is that my body wanted to be in bed for 7.5 hours a night. So that's 21 more hours a week. But I also found something else. I am a look at the data guy. I want to understand how things really work, the impact they have. I'm inherently skeptical. And so, in measuring, what I discovered was that before, when I was sleeping 4.5 hours a night, I would get a certain amount of work done in 70 hours. After, when I was sleeping 7.5 hours a night, I would get that same amount of work done in 40 hours. Now, I'd convinced myself that I was more effective than everybody else because I was getting more done. The truth is, I wasn't doing it terribly efficiently, and it wasn't about being a sleep warrior. It wasn't about being proud of like I only need to sleep this much a night. It was really about saying, what is my priority? My priority needed to be my health. My priority needed to be productivity and effectiveness and being there for my family and all of that. And to do that, as much as it is counterintuitive to so much in today's society, my challenge to you is to make sleep literally your number one priority, the number one thing that you commit that you will get no matter what. And a next level of that would be to do so in a consistent way, that you're getting at consistent hours. Only in the last year or two have I moved to that. For the last 2 years, I found my body needed a little bit more. I am sleeping for 7 hours and 53 minutes a night, not just in bed, sleeping for 7 hours and 53 minutes a night for the last 2 years. My life is immeasurably better because of it. And I would have been the very first to tell you that that was BS and would never be true. So my challenge for you is to explore that. Now, if you disagree, put that in the comments. Ask your questions. If you think that's great, let me know. If you try it or you're skeptical and you're thinking about it, my encouragement to you is give your body time to heal. Let your body sleep for as long as it wants for a period of time, and then see where it settles out and measure your productivity. I am confident that you are going to get a very much improved result if you haven't already done this work. The second foundation of focus. This is maybe the core of all the things that we'll talk about and that I share with my clients around focus. It is commit to this idea called maintenance plus one. You may be thinking, what in the world is Dan talking about? I've not heard that term before. It's based on the principle that we cannot multitask. We convince ourselves we can. Oh, I can do 5 things at a time. You can't. You just rapidly switch between them and not efficiently at all. We cannot multitask, and even trying to do so is remarkably inefficient. Now, I'm going to give you an example of where this shows up. Let's assume for a moment that you have 5 tasks that you need to complete, and each one of them would take a week of focused effort. If you do them all at the same time, which is how most of us like to try and do it, right? We want to keep all the plates spinning. We want to keep everybody happy. We want to feel like we're cool and we do all this stuff. Or we've got these new shiny ideas, so we bounce between them and we try and do them all at once. Take a guess. When do you think, and I encourage you, say it out loud as you're listening to it, when do you think the first task will actually be complete? Here's the answer. The answer is, at best, the first task will be complete 10 weeks from now. 10, not 5. Because you would think, oh, well, I do them I've got 5, they're 1 week tasks, it'll get done. Nope, it'll be 10 weeks from now, because we lose 50% of our efficiency by doing it this way. In addition to that, there is only a 30% chance that any one of those tasks will ever get done, and less than a 3% chance that the last one will. On the other hand, if you instead say, I will go after these tasks and I will do them consecutively rather than concurrently, when does the first one get done? They're 1 week tasks. It gets done in 1 week, literally 10 times faster to your first completion. Also, you're more than 80% likely, and it's typically around 90 to 92% likely to complete the first one, and you're even about 30% likely to complete the fifth one. It changes massively when you look and say, how do I need to do this? I need to do one thing at a time. So what does this lead to? This leads to the fact that we have 2 categories of items in our world that we work on. We have things that are maintenance level, that say don't take new energy. They are things that, like, let's say you're in a business. It might be paying the bills, or doing payroll, or getting the basic paperwork done, or getting your team out in the morning. All those things are in a maintenance level. In your life, it might be things like brushing your teeth, getting ready for the day. It might even be shopping or whatever's gotten to that spot where it doesn't cost you new energy. But then we have these other tasks that require new energy, that require creativity and movement and effort. Those things they take a huge amount of energy, and we'll call it focus, from us. And the truth is, you can only do one of them at a time if you want to be effective. And I see this in companies that I work with all the time. One of the very top things that I am training them about and helping them with, one of the very, very top things, is to get them to stop doing 5 things and only do one. Now, this doesn't mean that you won't get 5 done. It just means you got to do one at a time while it's your plus one. If you think about it as, I have all these maintenance things, and then I have my plus one slot, and all of our extra effort goes to that plus one slot, you will now knock it out and get it done in so much faster of a form, and you will feel better and you will get real movement. If you're not getting movement in your business or your life, this is likely one of the reasons why. So commit to maintenance plus one, and that is the action. for this. Establish your maintenance. Make a list of all the things you have in maintenance. Look at how much time they'll take, and then look at how many hours you have left, and create a list of items that could be your plus one. Pick one of them and work on it. Because I get asked all the time, I'm going to give a clarification here. You should have one for your business. You can have one for your personal life as well. So if you're looking to change a habit, or in this case, you might be looking to incorporate a behavior around focus, pick one and do that until it gets to maintenance, and then add another one in. The third item, when we think about the foundations of focus, is all about grouping tasks for efficiency. The principle here is that batching overcomes the task switching cost. If you're not familiar with the task switching cost, and many people aren't, it's self-explanatory in one way, in that it's the cost that you have of going from doing one thing to doing another. But what doesn't hit there is that there's an impact anytime we stop doing one thing, start doing another, and have to go back to the first. Think of it of you're in the middle of focusing on a task that you have at work. Someone walks up to you and they interrupt you. And I don't mean for 10 seconds. I mean, they interrupt you for a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Ask yourself, when you sit down and you go back to that first task, how long does it take you to get fully back into it? The average across everybody is that it takes 7 minutes. And there's a range depending on which study you look at, but I've found consistently the average is about 7 minutes. And there are some tasks that'll be more, some it'll be less, but that's a good one to hold. What that means is if you get interrupted by 5 different people, that's 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes, and 7 minutes. You just lost 35 minutes on what may have been a 20-minute task to you originally. There is a huge cost to task switching. The way that you solve that or one of the ways that you solve that, is that you perform batching. You group like things together. Marie Kondo, in her book, the life changing art, was it the life changing art of cleaning up, or magic of cleaning up? She talks about how to organize. And one of the principles she talks about several that are very good there, but one of them, as with almost any organizers, is when you have stuff, put it all in one place, put the same thing in one place. Do that with your tasks. For me, when this first became pretty obvious in my business life, it was when I was hiring people. We needed to hire a bunch of people. And so we had an ad out and there were phone screens coming in. Our first step after putting the ad out was that people would call in and we would do a 10-minute conversation with them. And at first, I had them spread out throughout the day, and I was like, oh, man, it feels exhausting and I'm not getting anything done. I finally switched to putting them into only a 2-hour period. You have a phone screen? Great. Call within this 2 hours. And that's all I did for those 2 hours. Instead of costing me 6 or 8 hours a day, it cost me 2, and I got a lot more stuff done. Another spot where I see that is a grocery list. When I sit down to make my grocery list each and every week, we now have an hour set aside to do it. If I allow myself to do it at a spot where I can be interrupted, oh, let me go walk the dog while I do it. Let me take this phone call while I do it. Let me go and look at my TikTok while I do it. It can take me 4 or 5 hours. If I do it with my kid in a focused way, well, like we have scheduled, it takes us about 45 minutes to make the meal plan for the week and to do the grocery list. Really think about this grouping and how can you block your time? That's the action. How can you create some time blocks that get your task types either daily or weekly put together, and you can increase efficiency? A side note, when you do this, you will gain rhythm. You won't just avoid the task switching cost, which is huge, 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes, but you'll also gain a rhythm because the more repetitions you get, the more in flow you will find yourself. Those are the first three. It's about guarding your sleep, committing to maintenance plus one, and grouping tasks for efficiency. The fourth foundation of focus is this is going to be a tough one for a lot of people, it's to plan for the real, not the ideal. Most of us, and especially a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with, we live in a fantasy realm. We live in a realm where we estimate everything perfectly and we can get maximum out of every time, and we never are going to have anything come up that won't be out of our plan. And guys, that's just ridiculous. That's completely and utterly untenable. So what really happens is, because we are, the principle here, terrible estimators, because we're terrible estimators and we pack ourselves together, we're eternal optimists. What ends up happening is we get a lot less done. We're stressed. When something does come in that interrupts us, we get very frustrated, and it creates a lot of emotion and a lack of calm. Go back to episode 3 and you can learn more about that. But it does that, and it leads to us having an incredible struggle with focus. So for me, I learned that I was a terrible estimator by a phone call that I got. I was out on the basketball court back years ago when I would play basketball hours a day. I missed those times. I got a call, and she said, "When are you going to be home?" I said, "Cool. I'll be home in half an hour." She said, "Great. I'll see you in 2.5 hours." And I was not happy. If I could say it, I was pissed. I was really unhappy. And I started to get frustrated, and I was like, "We'll talk about this when I get home." Well, when I got home 2.5 hours later, we did talk about it. It just wasn't the conversation that I was hoping to have. And she said at that time, I said, "How did you know?" She said, "You have a factor." And what I've learned since then is, thankfully, most people's factor aren't as bad as mine was then. Mine is much better, but everybody has a factor. We estimate that it's going to be done in an hour. Most of us, our factor is about a 2. So it generally will take us 2 hours. I'll be there in 15 minutes. We're there in 30 minutes. This is how reality works, rather than what we wish was reality. We're going to put together a piece of IKEA furniture. Maybe that factor gets bigger there, right? Instead of half an hour, it's like 4 hours. But there is a factor. And for you to determine what your factor is will give you significantly better results, because now you can plan for that. The way I encourage you to begin planning for the factor portion, and we're going to touch on flex in a moment, but the way that I encourage you to plan for this is to take whatever you think a time is going to do. And if you don't know your factor already, if you haven't done the study, assume it's a 2. So you double it. So when someone calls you and says, "When are you going to be here?" "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I'll be there in an hour." Just automatically double it. If you end up making everybody happier by showing up early, great. If How long is it going to take you to complete this task for me? Oh, 2 hours, 4 hours. Double it automatically. This is the action that you take, and this will make so much more change in your life than you can truly realize. When you are putting things on your calendar, and I don't mean necessarily an hour-long meeting, but like all of your tasks and anything that you would commit, or your travel time, just put double it on your calendar. You will start to breathe because you're accepting reality instead of living in the fantasy. The other side of this, and it amplifies it, is what they call flex, or what I call flex. Flex is this understanding that we need a day that can flex to the crazy stuff that happens. Every one of you that's listening, you have crazy stuff that happens in your day. It absolutely does. And you might be thinking, "Yeah, damn it, I have no idea when that's going to come up, or how much it's going to be, or what it is." And I will say partial BS to that. You may not know exactly what it is. That's the point of it being unplanned, and et cetera. But you do know that it is coming, and you do know roughly how much. If you look at your days over the last year, you can assess, is it about 25% of your day that gets eaten up with that stuff? Is it about 50%? For most people, it's one of those two categories. If you can pin it down to something different, great. But it tends to be somewhere around 25% of your waking hours, or somewhere around 50% of your waking hours. If your waking hours are 16 because you are spending 8 hours sleeping, resting, doing all that, and 25% of your day gets up, then there's 4 hours that need to be set aside for flex. When you are putting your calendar together, when you are planning your day, leave yourself that 4 hours of time. And whether you do it in half-hour blocks or hour blocks, I don't care. The whole idea here is that you leave expansion joints in your day, so that now when somebody comes up to you and says, "I need you right now, it's urgent," you don't get irritated. You instead pause, smile, breathe, and you're the calm one in the room that looks up and says, "How can I help?" Because you didn't know what was coming, but you knew it was, and now you can greet them without frustration. You may be wondering, and I get asked all the time around this when I teach time effectiveness, if you plan for factor and flex, You put in half the tasks because you assume they take twice the time. You leave 4 hours of blank time. You might be saying, Dan, I'm going to get a lot less done. Two things are true. One, you're not, because you're also going to keep a list of everything that needs to be done and how much time, doubled, of course, that it would take, so that if you have a blank spot, you can just jump into one of those things. That's awesome. You will never, ever get less done. But more importantly, you're not going to get less done because you weren't going to get it done anyway. You are actually accepting reality and planning a much less stressful, much more, to our point here, focused day. That's a crucial component, factor, and flex. Number five, shape your environment. The principle here is we get what we tolerate or allow. What does that mean? It means a lot of things that we could explore into, but specifically here, it means that you want to look at your environment, physical environment around you, and you want to look at the environment that is created by your phone. And that these relate to focus in a pretty big way. I will give you an example of how your environment can affect you in a truly negative way without you even fully being aware of it until you consciously pause and look and ask the questions. There was a painting that I had that was sitting near me that has a very tough memory tied to it. I had consciously forgotten it was even there, but it happened to be in my line of sight. And my coach one night said, "Where's that painting?" And I said, "It was in front of me." She said, "How's your efficiency been?" I said, Not great. I'm struggling to focus." And I didn't think these were related. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. She said, Go put the painting somewhere else. Get it out of your room." And I did. I moved the painting and put it elsewhere. Almost immediately, my focus was better. Now, that was subconscious. There are a lot of things that consciously get us. Think about the room that you sit in. Is it cluttered or is it clear? Is there a place for everything? Does everything have a place? Or do you have a credenza or a table or a desk that has just clutter all over it? You may be thinking, that doesn't affect me much, but it does. Are things in easy reach that you need? Are the things that you go after? Do you have to take an extra 10 steps or 20 steps, or are they there? Does it feel comfortable where you are? Do you have good lighting? All of those things. That's a physical example, and it significantly affects your focus. Also plan that if you're going out to work somewhere, do you sit in the light? Do you sit near people? What helps you to focus the best? I'm not saying what your environment needs to be. I'm saying that your environment needs to be for what is right for you. The other component of this is your phone, because our phone or our devices, they create so much in our environment. And because of that, while I'm not going to do a deep dive here, I am going to give you two strong suggestions with your action that you can take around your phone. Check your environment, your physical environment. That's the action for that part. The action for this component is to turn your notifications off and switch your phone to grayscale. Now, let me talk briefly about each of those. Your notifications, the psychology that goes into them is unbelievable. I could spend hours talking about that. But if you look at your notifications and you turn them off, you're now not going to be twitching every time somebody buzzes you. You're not going to be at risk of a task switching cost or of an emotional hit or of chasing dopamine. Turn your notifications off and start checking your phone a few times a day. I talked about that also in, I believe it was the clarity or the calm portion as well. The second one is a little more unusual, and this is change your phone to grayscale at least during the day, at least when you are trying to focus. And I'm going to challenge you, even aside from picking your one, I'm going to challenge you to do this very little exercise. Go into your settings, go into accessibility, select turn it to grayscale. But before you do, I want you to really pause and breathe and think, how do you feel right now? How keyed up do you feel? What do you do? Hit the grayscale button, go back to your home screen, look at it, and tell me how you feel. And I promise you, I've done this in front of hundreds in an audience and had them do it, and I can watch the body language. You will feel differently instantly. It is one of the craziest on-off switches that I know of, one of the magic buttons that I could hit with somebody. Turn that to grayscale, and you will feel different. It'll also give you a little scary vision into how much psychology goes into putting this stuff together. Those two things will help you with your phone, and then evaluate your environment that is around you to make it to where it is conducive to you feeling calm and clear, but also being able to focus. The last one, the sixth one for today, is to commit to productivity. And you might be like, Dan, of course, I want to be productive. Hear me differently. The principle is that worked and productive are not the same thing when it comes to hours. I have had many times where I could sit in my office and I'm getting stuff done, and then I get distracted for a minute and I start scrolling through TikTok and an hour passes. That was a worked hour technically, but it wasn't a productive hour. So when I work with my clients, what I suggest that they do is they, rather than committing how many hours a week they'll put into their business or how many hours they'll put into a hobby or whatever, I encourage them to choose how many productive hours they will commit to. That gets away the noise and the chaff and everything else, and it lets you look at it through a different lens. It lets you evaluate each hour. Was I productive? Was I not? Did I move at 80% or better of my productive speed, or did I get drifted and I moved at 20%? Where am I at? And when you pick the number of productive hours, you've got to recognize not every hour is going to be productive. So when you build your schedule, my encouragement is build it with 25% more. If you say, I will have 30 productive hours, schedule around 40. And that way, when you lose an hour, you're not losing part of your commitment. Your commitment is how many productive hours have I had? And then track it. At the end of your hour, or the end of your block, whatever it is, mark down. Oh, yeah, I had 2 productive hours. I had this. This is going to have another impact on productivity, which is something that in a particular way, entrepreneurs really miss, which is if you commit to say 25 productive hours or 30 productive hours and you work your 40, but you mark off, I had 30 productive hours. When you get to the evening and you're spending time on your hobby or with your kids or going out for a walk, no longer will you feel guilty. No longer will you feel like, oh, I should be working or I should be pulled. It allows you the opportunity not just to focus for productivity at work, but it lets you freely focus for the productivity of your life. It lets you be present in an incredibly important way that is elusive for many people who work in almost any job, but certainly for entrepreneurs. So commit to productivity by shifting your focus to picking a number of productive hours, scheduling 25% more of those, and then working towards and tracking that goal, and you will feel a little bit of difference. We have 6 foundations of success here: guarding your sleep, committing to maintenance plus 1, grouping tasks for efficiency, planning for the real, not the ideal, shaping your environment, and committing to productivity. Which one of these are you going to pick to start with? Over time, I encourage you to do them all, but which one is going to make the biggest difference for you right away to help you get where you want to go right away? I challenge you with that question, and I'd love to see in a comment or a DM, send me a note. Say, this is the one I'm starting with. Here's what I think. Here's what I took away from this. Now, as we begin to wrap up, I'm going to encourage you to remember some key thoughts. Focus without calm burns out. Focus without clarity spins out. But focus, when combined with both of those, that is where momentum lives. And going forward, look forward to episode 12. We've done calm, clarity, and focus. Now we'll talk about the rewards of momentum. For now, I hope that today gave you something to think about. And more importantly, something that you can act upon, something that gets you closer to your dream, that lets you feel not only the connection, but the movement that we all crave. If one of these 6 foundations landed for you, let me know. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, please be sure to pass this episode along to them because they might need it more than you realize. Thank you so much for showing up and for being willing to do the work that matters. And please know it's not just the work that matters, you do as well. And the way that you move forward today is going to shape more lives than you will ever know. Until next time, be well, breathe well, and keep building momentum.